How we doing this morning? We're chatty. You guys feeling chatty? Yeah, is it because the sun's out today? Yeah, special prayer request is supposed to rain on Thursday, Friday. If you guys could pray really hard for rain to move for Camp Madison, that'd be great, okay? Just letting you, Stephanie says it's not going to rain, to which I always respond, if it does rain, it's because something else is supposed to happen and God has something in store for us. And then she says it's not going to rain. Just now you guys know what it's like to work here. So we have different understandings of how faith works, but it's the same God. So Stephanie, I love you. Welcome. Super glad you're here. I totally derailed any of my opening. Okay, so we'll start over. Ready? Okay, perfect. Welcome. Super glad that you guys are here. Welcome to Freedom House. We are in our last week of our Arrow Strikers series. Throughout this whole series, we've been talking about this idea that when God invites us into something, he invites us fully to engage in it. He's not like, hey, I want a little piece of you in this activity. He's like, I want all of you in this activity. And it comes from this story in the Old Testament where someone goes and starts grabbing arrows and just shoots one or two instead of just unloading his whole quiver, right? We are people who are passionate. And that means we go all in. Right now, I have a feeling there's a few of you who are Pacers fans that are feeling all in. I learned they won yesterday. I have not been paying attention. I'm so sorry, but Pacers fans, congratulations. It means nothing to me, but I'm grateful for you. So glad that you guys are here. I also, for those of you that don't know, if you were here last week, I was supposed to be here last week and then I wasn't, just to answer everybody at one time. Some of you have asked already. I'm feeling okay. Doing much better. I was out last week. Heather got thrown into a whirlwind of an experience. So thank you, Heather, for being willing to just go on a whim. So I was miserable. So hopefully you guys were having more fun. But as we get started though, I want to take a moment and just pray. Can we pray together? God, thank you. More than anything, God, I'm just very aware this morning of how good you are. I think sometimes it's so easy to get stuck in all this stuff, and yet at the end of the day, you are good. You are kind and compassionate and caring, and you see us and you love us and you know us. You know everything and you love us. And so, God, I just thank you. This morning, as we go to your word and experience what it is that you have for us, would you help my words get out of the way, help the distractions be moved, and help us just focus on what it is that you are trying to say to us this morning. We love you, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen. All right, so we're ending this series on Arrow Strikers, and we're going to end with a topic that doesn't feel like the kind of topic you're going to end with. We're going to end talking about pain. Yay! It wasn't supposed to be the end, but I actually find it incredibly important to talk about this because the biggest deterrent to our calling and to what God is inviting us into are the pains in our life that stop us, right? Those inconveniences, those challenges, those points in relationship that make it difficult to persevere. And so we're going to talk about that, but I need to unpack a little bit of what we've talked about through this series so that we can all be on the same page. And I am not Heather. Heather was a teacher. I have only in my mind been a teacher teaching my stuffed animals as a kid. So I'm going to use the whiteboard, but my skills are minimal, okay? So I should just have Heather walk up here and write it, but it's okay. In the middle, you guys, if you've been here, you've seen, look at how big I'm writing. You guys see it? If you can't, I'm sorry, I can't write any bigger. In the middle of our life, we have our calling, and we've been talking for weeks about how our calling is us and God together. Like that, for the rest of your life, that will always be true. That doesn't change. We are image bearers of the King. We get to be in community with God. That is all of our calling, every single one of us. This comes first before anything else. Do we got this? Then we've talked about within our calling, we have things called assignments, okay? And in our assignments, God gives us things that are unique to us to pursue or to do. And so, for example, for some of us, maybe it's family, right? We have a commitment and an assignment to our family, a spouse, parents, kids, all of the above. Then maybe we have friends. Hopefully we have some friends. That's a different series, okay? So then we have friends, people that we are committed to, people that are committed to us and we're doing life with. Then you go into the things that we generally think about when we think about calling, and we think about things like our jobs, the things that we do. We think of calling as the thing we do, not the thing we are. But that's just a facet. It's an assignment, right? My assignment right now is to work at Freedom House and to build mission here. Right? This is my current assignment. Then you have other things. I don't know. We'll go with hobbies, okay? Anybody have a really good hobby? Right, what do? You crochet. Anybody else crochet? Anybody else want to crochet? Okay, I've got some people that are going to learn from you. I love it. Perfect. Okay, I have knit, but that's about it. I'm not good at hobbies, okay? This is one I'm working on. But maybe there's hobbies or things that we are attached to in our life that are part of the unique assignment that God is giving us. Then there's other things like serving at church might be an assignment. You might serve in kids ministry for a season, and it's an assignment, one of the best assignments, if I say so myself. And there's other places that God invites us into, but it has to start here between us and God. Not here with the assignments that God is giving us, because today we're going to talk about pain. And if we confuse those two, what happens is instead of releasing from an assignment, we'll release from our calling. And so today, before we can go anywhere, we need to understand that our calling is first between us and God. It has to start there. Are we good? Okay, this feels like a good summary of what we've been talking about. All right, then we're going to talk about some pain. Anybody really bad at recognizing pain? I need like one or two of you to agree with me on this. Okay, thank you. Thank you for pretending. I love it. I'm really bad at recognizing pain, okay? I would go to the doctor, even as a kid, and they would say things like, what kind of pain is it? And I would look at them like they're crazy. Because I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, is it a sharp shooting pain? Is it a dull pain? And I was like, I don't know. It's pain. Or my least favorite, if you want to make me angry really, really fast, ask me how I'm feeling between 1 and 10. I don't know. And so they're like, how's your pain between 1 and 10? And I was like, if you ask me that, my pain's going to be a 10 because I don't know how to answer the question. Also, is there a baseline? Like, am I normally at a 3? And so I go up from there. I don't know how to calculate pain. And the real problem is I actually don't recognize it very well in myself. In fact, last fall, I was starting to have some headaches and some migraine issues and some neck pain, and all of that is pretty normal because I get a lot of pain all the time, and I just don't think about it. And at some point, after a few, I'm going to guess weeks of being in a lot of pain, my roommate looked at me and said, I think it's time to go to the doctor. And I said, no. Doctors are great. If you're in here and you're a doctor, you're great. I just don't want to see you, okay? But after her saying it a couple times, I said, okay, fine, I will go to stop annoying you with my pain, okay? I understand for her it was worry, but I felt annoying to her. And so I went to the doctor, but this time I went prepared because I know I don't know how to understand my pain. And I had my roommate help me write notes on my phone so that when the doctor says, tell me about your pain, I could go, well, I am having headaches at nighttime when I'm trying to sit. And I read it off of my phone to my doctor. Guys, this is apparently a very unique problem, but it's not fun, okay? And what started as curiosity from my doctor, her face quickly changed and it became concern. Don't we love when a doctor has that look on their face? It's great. So I'm going, it's just headaches and neck pain. Like, this happens all the time. And she's like, listen, I'm going to have you go take a CT. And I went, what? I have headaches and neck pain. You just tell me to, put heat on it and take some ibuprofen. That's what you are supposed to do. And she's like, no, go get a CT. And so I go and I get a CT within the next hour. And then I go home, I make dinner, I eat my dinner, and then I get a phone call from the doctor. If you've ever had this moment, you know it's usually not good if they're calling you back that fast. And so she tells me, hey, so your CT showed up and you tore the artery in your neck. You're going to need to go to the hospital. And I laughed out loud in that moment because in my mind it was funny because it doesn't feel like that. How am I supposed to register that pain? And yet this whole time, this pain has been telling me, Kelsey, something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong. And I just kept going, I'm good, thank you. And just pushing through. The worst part of this story is this is the second time that I've torn the artery in my neck, and I still didn't recognize it. Guys, I'm okay. Let's start with it. Okay, I'm okay. It's still torn. We're allowed to keep moving. Everything's fine, okay? But the reality is, a lot of us treat our pain a little bit like that. We pretend it's not there. We ignore it. We pretend it will go away. Or if there's an area that has pain, we just don't do anything with that space of our life, right? But the reality is we have to pay attention to what pain is trying to say. Pain is communicating something to us, and we have to pay attention to it. My pain was telling me, hey, something's wrong, slow down. It wasn't telling me stop, it was saying slow down, but our pain is telling us something. And we've probably all experienced that, right? You get the flu, you have to slow down. You break a bone in your body, you can't play sports for a couple weeks. We've experienced physical pain, but isn't this also true about our relationships and our emotional life? Isn't this true about our spiritual life, that we can experience pain and it's trying to tell us something, but we're not great at understanding what it's trying to say, so we just either ignore that area altogether or we like white knuckle through it. But what if there was a reality that pain is trying to communicate something to us, and in listening to that, we can actually find the answers we need to that pain? Not that pain is going to go away. Pain will exist. In fact, to begin, we have to understand where pain comes from, and there's 3 places that it really comes from, okay? I'm going to break this down. There's like a million nuances to this. This is as simple as I can make it. You ready? The first thing that causes pain is the decisions I make or the decisions you make. I make a decision and it hurts me. You make a decision and it hurts me. I make a decision and it hurts you. Does this feel accurate? I'm going to guess actually most of the pain we can think about is caused by another person, because we have choices, and because we can make those choices, we hurt people. And what do hurt people do? Hurt people, right? The first place that pain comes from is because I have the ability to choose what I do in my life. I will hurt people and people will hurt me, and that's where pain comes from. Can we agree that this is accurate? The second place that pain can come from is the reality, and this is the one that's really hard and really messy and difficult and frustrating, and I don't like to think about it sometimes because you can just get stuck in your head, but the idea that because there is sin in the world is broken. Originally, the world was perfect, and we lived in perfect harmony with the world and with God, and then sin came and broke it, so now we are broken, and we make decisions we shouldn't make, but the earth itself is also broken. In Romans, it says that the earth groans. Like, even, I think I'm from California, right? We talk a lot about tectonic plates out in California because there's earthquakes. But even the ground is literally broken underneath. It is not whole. Because sin entered the world, so the world has brokenness in it. And because of that, we get the stomach flu on a Sunday morning. Because of that, there are disasters and frustrations that we can't control that just happen. Because of that, words like cancer exist. Because the world is broken, these things exist. Because the world is no longer a perfect place. And there is a coming perfection, but right now we're here, and it is broken. So we've got the choices and decisions people make, the sin we all have, the brokenness of the earth, and then the third one, and this is one that sometimes people will either downplay or overplay. We have an enemy. We have an enemy. And the enemy is out to steal, kill, and destroy. The enemy's job is to look at you and say, I know you have this assignment over here, but I'm going to distract you. I'm going to keep you from focusing, so I'm going to make some pain in your world, or even that pain that someone else caused, going to grow it. Instead of having reconciliation, I'm going to let this fester and that relationship blow up. So now we have pain in spaces because the enemy's like, if I can distract you, I can keep you off your target. And some of us downplay it. We're like, there's no enemy. It's just all our own choices. No, there is an enemy, and he is for sure doing some stuff. Some of us are like, any bad thing that ever happens is the enemy. That's also not true. We have the ability to choose things. So finding this interesting balance where we understand that there is an enemy who is trying to stop you from accomplishing the things God has for you. And here's the truth. God has things for you. And if you're in this room and you think that that is not true, let me be the first to tell you, God has things for you. And the enemy does not get to stop those things. By understanding these 3 pain points, we can begin to understand that pain is trying to communicate something different. Because if the first pain is my own decisions, then maybe the pain is a consequence and I need to go deal with my sin. Right? If pain is the reality of the earth and that things are broken, there are some things we're just going to push through. Then there are times you get the stomach flu. Don't push through that. Lay down. Call Heather. Not actually, don't call Heather if you're sick. I don't think she'd like that very much. Sorry, Heather. Here's her phone number. No, I'm just kidding. The last one, if it's the enemy, and this is the one that I love, if the enemy is after you, you better push through. That means you're on the right path. That means you keep going. But we don't get to call it the third one if what it actually is my sin. I don't get to be like, well, the enemy's after me because I'm doing something amazing, but the reality is the sin that is in my life is actually causing me the most pain. Do we see how understanding where the pain comes from helps us to understand what to do with the pain? Do we get it? So here's where we go with this. Now we have to figure out what the pain is trying to say. And sometimes pain is telling you to stop. Some of you heard me say that or read it and went, no, thank you. All of us are going to have a hard time with one or the other. This is the one I have a hard time. You mean I have to stop something? I don't just push through it. How many of you are with me? You're the person that you're like, there's pain, let's go. Like nothing's going to stop me. I'm going to manage. I'm going to bulldoze through some things. Pain doesn't get to decide my life for me, or I'm just going to ignore the pain because it's not real and it's not there and I'm going to be just fine, right? For some of us, when we hear that sometimes what the pain is trying to say is stop, we go, no, thank you. I'm good. I will keep moving. But the reality is it's there for a reason. When I was a youth, I played soccer for a lot of years, and I loved it. One of my favorite sports to play. But I also, at some point, developed this little thing called asthma, which makes soccer playing a little difficult. And so me and my coach, who happened to be my dad, thanks, Dad, we came up with a symbol that while I was out on the field, I could go like this. And my dad would know, I can't breathe, and you need to pull me so I can take an inhaler. So I'd be running, and then I can start to feel the wheezing, and I'd go, coach, because he didn't listen to Dad. He just heard coach, and I'd just do one of those. And he would know to sub me out and put someone in so I could sit on the bench and take my inhaler and just breathe. You see, there are pain points in our life that are similar to that, where God is asking you to stop, to catch your breath. That you are no longer able to go at the pace you were going at. And he's saying, hey, I need you to come take a seat and take an inhaler and catch your breath. Well, today we're going to talk about this guy named Paul. Paul's amazing. But Paul originally did not start as a follower of Jesus. In fact, he was adamantly opposed to all things Jesus. He was going into this town called Damascus, and as he was going, his goal was to find all the people that loved Jesus and throw them into jails and destroy life as they knew it. Like, he was on a mission to protect his understanding of God by going into these towns and ripping these people out of their homes. On the way, God had other plans. You ever had that? On the way to what he thought was his assignment, he gets on the road, and then all of a sudden Jesus comes into the picture and is like, hey, buddy, that guy that you think is not real, it's me. I'm real. I'm the real deal, and you're going to work for me now. So then he goes into this city, and he gets taken care of, and he begins to learn a little bit more about Jesus, and he hears some of the stories, and he starts preaching the gospel of Jesus, right? Crazy beautiful. But in this city called Damascus, where he's learning and he's growing and he's becoming, he's also creating enemies. Why? Because he originally came there to throw Christians in jail, and now he's not doing it, so people aren't happy with him. Not only that, he's boldly creating ruckuses everywhere he goes. And in this letter that he writes to this church in Corinth, he starts just this little moment where he talks about what happens specifically in this city that he's in a couple different times. It says it this way. In 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 32, he said, in Damascus, the governor under King Aretas had the city of the Damascenes guarded in order to arrest me. But I was lowered in a basket from a window in the wall and slipped through his hands. Guys, the Bible has weird stories. As a kid, I remember watching like videos of this. They're like, and then Paul went through the window and then down a basket. But like, it's crazy. Like, if you stop and think about it, this actually happened. You see, Paul had a choice. All of a sudden, this whole city, all of the guards in Damascus are out for him. Like, every single one of them is on his tail. And he has a choice. Okay, in this moment, he has a choice. He can continue to preach, continue to create a nuisance, and he's going to get arrested. Right? Does that feel accurate? And here's the deal. He's okay with that. In fact, later on in 2 Corinthians, he talks about how many times he's arrested and how many times he's beaten and how many times he's shipwrecked and how many times he faced all of these kinds of enemies and robbers and all these things. He's not afraid of the consequence, so the consequence isn't what's telling him to stop. The other option is to give up on his calling. He could say, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm out. I'm just going to live a peaceful life in this city. I don't want to do any of this stuff with Jesus. I'm good. The third option is to understand that it's not the calling that needs to stop, it's the assignment that needs to stop. So in this moment, Paul, in this pain, in this frustration, as he's being chased down, as he's trying to navigate his world, in this moment, he makes a decision that God has, and this is a very Jesus-y word that we use a lot, and I'm going to explain a little bit of it. God has released him from the assignment. It's almost as if, like, his assignment for a season was Damascus. I don't know how to spell it offhand, so we're just going to leave it at that. And at this point, instead of giving up on his calling, he says, this is no longer my assignment, at least for this season. And God releases him, and this becomes someone else's assignment. It's not that God gave up. He's like, Damascus, good for you, you're done. God has other people there. How do we know? Because Paul was staying with them. But this is no longer his assignment. And so sometimes pain is telling you, this isn't yours. Stop trying to take it. And how do we know? Because God gave him an out. Sometimes God gives us the out. He gives us a release, a moment that's very clear. And he says, listen, this is not yours to hold anymore. I've got other people. You get in this basket. Don't you wish it were that clear? Like, you're like, oh yeah, should I continue fighting for this friend? Or am I released from this friendship? And he's like, here's a basket, get in. It would make it very easy, but almost never are we released the same way twice. But we have to be attentive to what God is saying, which means we have to pay attention to that pain and understand, hey, is this pain God saying it's time to move on? Or is this pain saying stick through it? And sometimes he's telling us to stop. And not because he's done with you, right? Calling is still established. He's saying you might just be done with this assignment. And that's okay. Why? There's a lot of reasons. One of them we've talked a little bit about. One of the reasons an assignment might not be yours is because you have an area of sin in your life that is keeping you from being able to be in that assignment. And that's not permanent. It might be. It might not be. But if there's an area of sin in your life that is ruling some aspect of who you are, there are certain assignments you cannot take. It doesn't disqualify you from Jesus. It just may not qualify you for that assignment. So he may be saying, go deal with the sin. Stop trying to live out this assignment and go deal with the sin. Another reason might be maybe your time in that assignment is up. We don't like that one, huh? But it's not over. But I haven't done everything I can do. Not everybody has said yes to Jesus in that space. What am I supposed to do with that, right? Even here, and maybe this is more honest than I'm supposed to be. Oops. Since I've worked here, we've had a lot of staff. And some of them don't work here anymore. Why? Because they were here on assignment for a season. Then God moved them. We wish it was more complicated than that, huh? Sometimes it's not. That's it. In fact, some of them are friends. Some of them are people I love dearly, and I see what God is doing in their world right now, and I go, there's no way on God's green earth they're still supposed to be here. Not to mention, I see that God is bringing the right people here at the right time to the right assignment, and I can't deny, does it hurt in the moment? Yes, but in the long term, I begin to look back and go, look at what God's been doing this whole time. So don't think that you are stuck to one assignment for all time, because God has the ability to move you, because the only thing you're stuck to is your calling. Period. Some of these will change. You will have friends that will not be friends forever. Sorry to tell you that. But God's not done with them, and he's not done with you, because he's doing more than just what you can do. The minute you think you're the only person that can save your friends, you've missed how big God is. And then there's other things like, it's just not your assignment. We hate that one, huh? There's a woman that serves here, amazing lady, and she used to serve in the kids department like forever. Like, she's one of those people that you could just hand her anything and she could just do it, okay? She's phenomenal. And she could teach all the lessons, and she was great at corralling kiddos and doing all the things. And then God moved her assignment to something else, where she joined the connections team and is now a host of a section. And I talked to her, and she talked to me about how there was a season where she's like, but I don't understand why this assignment. Why not the other one? Back there, I was doing all these crazy things, and you're putting me here, and yet God knew that that's where she needed to be. And so it was frustrating in the moment, but then she began to see that maybe God's been doing something. So allowing ourselves to say, I'm stuck to my calling, but not to my assignment, gives us freedom. Suddenly, it's okay if things shift or move. It's okay if things don't always look the same week to week. Why? Because I'm not stuck to an assignment. I'm stuck to Jesus. So things can stop. And you know what happens if we don't listen? There would be times on the soccer field where maybe I'm just caught up in the sport. Anybody get really competitive and you forget to stop and think about if you're breathing? You ever have that? Perfect. You guys didn't understand earlier, so I'm hoping this one makes more sense, okay? You're out there, or maybe it's the last 3 minutes and the game is tied 1-1, and you're one of the top scorers on your team, and you just think, I have to be out there because I will win this game for us. It happened a couple times, okay? But then all of a sudden, your dad is calling from the sidelines, sub, and he's calling your number, and you're like, what are you doing? You get on the sideline, and you're like, Dad, what are you doing? Except it sounded a little bit more like this. Dad, what are you doing? Why'd you take me out? And he goes, I saw what you didn't. You weren't okay out there. So he pulled me, put me on the bench, and he was right. Had I stayed out there, I would be less effective. Had I stayed out there, I probably would have passed out. It would have been a whole scene. But the Father loves us enough to pull us from a game we think we're attached to. There are assignments you're in that you don't need to be in, and it's killing you. And if you continue to stay in them, he will remove you. I was in an assignment in a season of my life, and I loved it. I was doing all the things, but I was running at a sprint's pace, and I was saying yes to everything because that's what I wanted to do. And I was running out of breath, couldn't catch my breath, didn't know what to do, and just kept trying to push through. And God gave me a lot of lifelines. He sent some people in to be like, hey, I don't think you're doing so well. I think you need to stop. And I ignored it. God had released me a long time ago, and yet I just kept running. Why? Because I was so focused on my assignments. I have to do this. I have to do this. I have to do this. That these became my idols, and this got lost in the middle. And because of that, God removed me from an assignment that I never thought I'd leave. And he put me on a bench, and I kicked and I screamed and I was angry with him. And as I sat on that bench and got my inhaler, I realized how much pain I was actually in. When God releases you, listen. Because otherwise, he will pull you. And when he does, it hurts a lot more. And yet, on the bench, you know who was there? God. A loving Father with my inhaler telling me, I got you. You're good. So there are times that God's going to tell you to stop. But in my life, I have found that more often, that is not what it's saying. Sometimes pain is telling you to push through. Earlier, I said that those of you who saw the word stop, you're going to be like, I don't know how to stop. Some of you are like, I don't know about this. I don't like pain. If I feel pain, I go the other direction. If I feel a little bit of pain, I take ibuprofen, okay? You just avoid pain altogether because it's too much. But the reality is, because pain sometimes comes from things that aren't telling us to stop, right? Maybe pain is the enemy telling you to get distracted and to move and to do something different. We have to push through because the assignments are asking for us to persevere. The assignments are inviting us to keep going. The assignments are saying, hey, that friend needs you to keep fighting, even though everything in you doesn't want to. More often than not, what God is saying about the assignments that you have is keep moving forward. In fact, the same letter that Paul writes to this church in Corinth, and this church in Corinth was a little bit of a doozy, okay? There's multiple letters. He visits multiple times. They just don't quite get all the things because they live in the world and they want to be comfortable and safe and they don't want to have to address like sin. They're like back and forth continuously. And one of the big points for them is they're like, we don't want to be uncomfortable. We just want it all to be easy and to make sense. And so he gives them a dose of reality about pain. In 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 8, he says, we do not want you to be uninformed, brothers and sisters, about the troubles we experienced in the province of Asia. We were under great pressure, far beyond our ability to endure. So we despaired of life itself. Have you had that moment? Sitting on the floor in your house, crying, going, I don't know how to keep going. Wondering, is there much beyond this? Like, how do you get back up? That's what he's saying. He's saying, we were in Asia. That's what we were experiencing. And he continues, and he says, indeed, we felt we had received the sentence of death. But this happened that we might not rely on ourselves, but on God who raises the dead. He has delivered us from such a deadly peril, and he will deliver us again. On him we have set our hope that he will continue to deliver us as you help us by your prayers. What a weird letter to write, right? Hey, church, at the very beginning. Hey, we're struggling. It's hard. In fact, it kind of sucks out here. There are days we're not sure we're going to get back up. We're not sure if we can keep pushing through. And yet he tells them this. Why? Because he wants them to understand there will be pain. And the minute you think you can walk through your calling and walk through your assignments without pain, you're missing the fact that we have a God who sent his son to experience ultimate pain so we can experience life with him. So pain is part of the process. And he says, but hang in there. And there's this belief that we have, and it comes out of Scripture, that God will never let us go through more pain than we can handle. Did you hear him undo that? He said it was more than we could bear. We couldn't do it. There will be experiences in our lives that are more than we can bear, more than we can deal with, more than we can process. And yet God's going to say, stay put anyway. Why? Because when we do, we get to sit next to him who gets us through it. And I wish it were easier than that. I wish I could give you here's 3 things you can do when it gets really tough. But he says it. He says, when it gets really tough, you hang on to Jesus because you know there are people depending on you on the other side. You hang on to Jesus because you know that there's going to be more that comes out of this. And for Paul, in all of these letters, what he keeps pointing back to is he says, the more we endure, the more we're able to give to you. The more we endure, the more we can share in your pain and your suffering. You see, there are experiences you're having right now that are difficult and painful and frustrating. But if you endure them, then you get to help the next person who walks through them. And they get to see the hope of Jesus because you look a little bit more like him. And you get to say, I've been there. You can do this. Have you ever had someone tell you a story about the thing you're walking through and you're like, oh, if they can do it, I can do it? That's why Paul stuck it out. That's why him and his friends said, we will endure everything beyond what we can endure, holding on to Jesus because there's more at the end. You see, the season where I got yanked out of the game, I remember sitting with God on this bench and I remember saying to him, I don't want to do this anymore. Ministry is really hard. Hey, if you guys don't know what ministry is really hard, I won't go into the nitty-gritty, but it's hard. I don't want to work for a church anymore. Like, I'm out. I don't want to do this. And I remember telling God all of these feelings and all of these frustrations, and he just kept saying, you got to get back up. You have to push through. You have to find that next assignment because there's more for you to do, and I'm not done with you yet. And I remember in that season, I had this therapist, and I started processing some of this with her, and I was trying to tell her that I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just going to go do like a different job, okay? And it's going to be great, and I'm going to love it. She's like, you will. It'll be great. But God has an assignment for you. And I remember her saying the words, and I hated her for it. She said, you can only lead people to what you're willing to walk through. If you want to be the kind of person that in these assignments can be there in those spaces, you have to be willing to walk through your own stuff too. Because I have no business sitting with someone who's struggling and going, aha, push through. And I'm like, I'm good. I'm just going to stuff it all down and pretend we're fine. I only get to lead people to where I'm willing to walk through, which means the same is true for you. You want to have an impact in your family, on your friends, at your job? You want to have an impact on the assignments God's given you? Then you have to push through enough to be able to come out on the other side and say, I know where you're at. Let me hold your hand and walk you through this. But you have to be willing to push through, and it's not easy. I would love to tell you that at some point you just arrive on the other side, but it doesn't work that way, huh? Anybody ever do physical therapy? Okay. We're working a little bit on more people agreeing with me, okay? Shared life experience. I've done a lot of PT because I don't recognize pain, so then I keep going past what I'm supposed to, and then I hurt things. So I've done a lot of PT, okay? They've gotten a lot of my money from me. But the most recent time, I did something to the bottom of my foot. Couldn't even tell you, don't even remember. But I did something to the bottom of my foot, so I was in a boot for a season, and then I had to go do physical therapy. It was awful. Okay, they sit you down and they like give you rubber bands and you have to like do this thing. And then she makes me do like this stair thing. And then there's a little ball thing and I have to go like this. And you feel kind of ridiculous doing it. And week after week, I would show up twice a week, go do this. And then I was supposed to do it between my appointments. And sometimes I did. I'm not a great patient. That hasn't become clear. But I would start to do this, and then a couple weeks would pass, and pretty soon I realized the muscles in my legs were working a little bit better to move my foot the correct way. Suddenly, this pain on the bottom of my foot didn't hurt as bad because I had worked out the parts of me that needed to be worked out. Pretty soon, I could run again. I could jog again. I could do the things that I love because I built up muscle to get there. The same is true for our endurance. There are things you are walking through right now that the more you persevere, the more you put the work in, the more you put your time in, the more you trust God, the less it becomes. It's not that pain isn't real, but it's that it doesn't control you. And now you have the muscle memory to keep doing it, to help other people keep doing it. And pretty soon that next thing comes up and you're like, I know how to do this. I have the muscle memory for this. If I do PT just once and I quit, do you know what it does? Nothing. With God, it's the same thing. If you're like, hey, I want this assignment, and he's like, great, I'm going to put you in these experiences. You're going to have to grow. You're going to have to persevere. You're going to have to become refined in who you are and build some muscle mass in you so that you can do this thing. And then you're like, I'm good. You can't get there. But if you want to get there, if you want to pursue what God has for you, stay the course, push through, fight anyway. And I get it. It's really hard. Because people hurt you, because situations hurt you, because the world is broken, because there's an enemy out to get you. But if he's out to get you, then you know you have something that God wants you to do. So you push through. Now, regardless of either one, whether it's telling you to stop or whether it's telling you to push through, here's the reality. Always pain is telling you to draw close. Always pain is telling you to draw close. Whether he's saying stop or push through, he is there with you, and he's saying draw close to me. In fact, the passage right before this says it this way. In 2 Corinthians 1, verse 3, he says, praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, catch this, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort. Is that the picture of God that you've had in your head? I think for me, I grew up thinking he was telling me, well, you get what you get. You earned this. And yet what this is saying is that he's the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in our troubles so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. For just as we share abundantly in the sufferings of Christ, so also our comfort abounds through Christ. If we are distressed, it is for your comfort and salvation. If we are comforted, it is for your comfort, which produces in you patient endurance of the same sufferings we suffer. And our hope for you is firm, because we know that just as you share in our sufferings, so also you share in our comfort. The title for God is the God of all comfort. The word comfort means a lot of things, but one of the first things it actually means is to summon or call upon, to bring close to you. When you're uncomfortable, maybe you do this, maybe you don't, you grab a blanket, right? If you're cold and you grab a blanket and you tie it around you and you cuddle up, right? It just creates a safety net for you. You just suddenly feel secure. There's like science behind this, right? If you have like a weighted blanket or something that's tighter on you, it actually calms you down faster. The idea of the word comfort is to summon and to wrap around and to close you in. You see, when we are experiencing pain, what God is asking us to do is summon him, to call upon him and say, please, I need you to come to me. And here's the kicker. I think sometimes we say these things like, I just want to be close to God again. God hasn't moved. He's there. So when you say, God, I need your comfort, he's like, I'm here. Let me in. I got you. He's the God of comfort, which means he's ready to wrap his arms around you and squeeze as tight as you need him to squeeze, but you have to let him. He has not changed. He will always be there. He will always be the God of comfort. That doesn't go away. So the situations you're in, he's still there. If you're finding yourself going, I'm alone, I can't do this, he's going, I'm here, let me in. Let me come with you. Let me do this. And he will be present. Instantly, he's there. But I think for a lot of us, the pain that we've acquired has become bricks to block out the people and the things that God has for us. I don't want to get hurt by this again, so I'm going to build a wall. I don't want to get hurt by this again, so I'm going to build a wall. I don't want to get hurt by this again, so I'm going to build a wall. And God's on the other side going, I can actually help you with this. And you're like, nope, I can't trust any of that, because what if I get hurt again? I'm not setting myself up for that. But here's the deal. The minute we start to say, okay, God, I'm ready, he's there. And he's going to help dismantle these hurts, not that they go away, but that we can offer these spaces forgiveness and release and move them to the side. And all the while, he's going to come close and he's going to bring us in. He's going to embrace us. The pain you're going through is not yours alone. He wants to do this with you. In fact, I mentioned a little bit ago that for a while the earth was perfect, right? Community with God was perfect, and then sin entered the world, and suddenly there was a divide between us and God, a divide we can't conquer because we're sinful. And what did God do in that season? He sent his son, who is perfect, who is blameless, to come and stand in the middle and say, I'm going to bring these two together, and we're going to summon you close to us. You see, it is through Christ that we are given the invitation to comfort. Not just salvation. Salvation's beautiful and wonderful, and I can't downplay that, but also like right here, right now, comfort. In fact, right now we're going to do something that we do occasionally. As you walked in, you got something, a little cup of juice, and then there's a little wafer on top. This is something we do occasionally. It's called communion. And the Bible tells us to do this upon occasion as a reminder of what God has done. That when Jesus came, he came to give his body and shed his blood for us, to bridge the gap so that we have full access to a God who wants to comfort us. So during this next song, I want you to draw close to God. I want you to take the moments to think about the sins that maybe have kept you, the pain that maybe has kept you from the calling and the presence of Jesus. And I want you to thank him for what he's given to you. And I want to ask you to invite him into a space with just you as you reflect on what this actually means, that he gives his body and his blood for you. Then when you're ready, this is on your own, take it. Then stand up and praise. And stand firm in the call that God has on your life, knowing that no pain gets to decide for you what God is for you. Your calling remains. If you're not ready to take it, maybe you have some things you need to work out. Maybe there's some people you need to forgive before you can take this. Take it home with you. But during this next song, it's a moment for you to reflect on the fact that Jesus came. He gave his body, he gave his blood to bridge the gap and to give closeness to a Father who loves us, who sits us on a bench, who gives us our inhaler, who reminds you to push through, and then who pushes you back in the game. Let me pray for us, and then we'll let you take this moment. God, thank you. Thank you for being a loving Father. A Father who held nothing back to get us back. A Father who sees our pain and sits with us in it. A Father who knows when to push and when to take a seat. A Father who is built in compassion and in comfort. Right now, God, we thank you for the gift of your Son and for what it means to be able to have full unity with you. We love you, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen.